So yeah, it looks like that's recording. There's a red light on. I'm gonna poke the fire. And I might catch myself on fire. Poking the fire. So, I hope this is a two-way conversation.
It is. I was thinking maybe I could ask you a few questions about the project that you're working on right now.
Absolutely. Let me just do that. Spread the holes around.
You gonna put another log in?
Oh yeah.
Great. Oh, that looks amazing.
Yep.
What kind of a fire is this? What kind of a stove?
This is a Blaze King. It's a
I've
catalyst.
heard good things about those.
Yeah. Basically, it burns forever. One log will last you a day.
Wow.
All right.
This is not sponsored by Blaze King, is it?
Not sponsored by Blaze King Industries, and I am not authorized to comment on our endorsements.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's a warm, cozy Canadian thing.
Yeah.
That's
great.
warm and cozy.
So, Sadowik, I've been hearing through the grapevine that you've been working on producing another artist's album.
Yeah, I wonder whose that is.
I heard it was someone called T. Nile.
Yes, yeah.
So how did you fall?
She's talented.
What have you guys been doing? Talk about that.
Well, we've been recording an album.
Okay.
And I've been, recording it. And we've done production for around a year-ish.
Yeah.
And now we're at the finishing stages.
Great. And so how is this different from other recordings that you've made and albums that you've made? What would you say is the primary difference?
Primary difference is it's very much stripped down. Like sonically, it's not mellow, but it's just everything has a space, and I had to learn that very quickly. It's the genre is Electro-Folk or folk. So it's like, yeah, electronic and folk music, which might seem pretty straightforward, but making electronic sounds sit well with folk things and having the vibe kind of match up is a little challenging. You can't use Vengeance packs and have it all make sense cohesively. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, you kind of have to like forget the whole notion of EDM banger when you're making, I guess, I don't know what you'd call it. Electro-folk, pop, blues, jazz.
Well, you're working with a singer-songwriter, and I think it's maybe not quite like anything else. You have to really work with the artist to sort of carve out a sound. It sounds like
trying thing. Yeah, she lets you know when she doesn't like what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to.
That's good. It's better than not knowing, I guess.
You have to regroup and take a different approach.
So what would you say are a few things that you've learned through this production process?
Can I cross my legs? Do I look dorky if I cross my legs?
No.
Okay. So, sorry, what was that question again?
What are some things you've learned production-wise through doing this project?
Making things fit in a mix in a particular way. I had a bit of like not a wake-up call, but a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that fire, it's amazing. A bit of a revelation listening to Lord, Royals, and Team. Just the way it sits, you couldn't make a EDM, I'm using the term EDM to mean like club music, that wouldn't work. Taking it if you applied EDM knowledge to make a Lord song, it wouldn't sound like that. You have to like strip it down, and it's like a lot of reduction and space, and the focus is the voice, and that's kind of what I learned very quickly.
I guess, yeah,
one
because
of the main things.
In your previous music, the voice was just another texture amongst many textures. It wasn't the focal point.
I don't even use voices in
Yeah, that's right. Interesting.
Yeah, not until recently.
And what would you say is the thing you're most excited about that you've done on this project that like stands out to you that you're like, oh, I'm so proud of that, or whatever, something like that?
Oh, well, a lot of manipulation of source material. There's a couple instances where I'm just like, that's pretty cool. Like, um, I made a guitar solo out of basically little tiny guitar tones that I sampled in and then moved them and stretched them and stuff like that. Is generally that like the fusion of like traditional instruments like electric guitar and whatnot with electronic stuff. For example, like layering a bass guitar with a bass synth, or
Yeah, and having that human touch of a person playing it rather than it's all quantized.
The human touch, and that is something that I also
Yeah.
learned. It's like I was using, people watching this probably know this, but Trillium.
Yeah.
It's a bass synthesizer. Well, it's not a synthesizer. It's like an instrument basically. You have you can load up like a bass, electric bass, and what it is a bass guitar player playing each note, and there's like the subtle nuances of like each note or whatever, and then you load it up and you can play it and it sounds like a real bass player. But we got a bass track from a gentleman named Marcus.
So he was one of the artists that you sent a...
Yeah, he was one of the artists that worked on the record. He's a bass player, and the most ear-catching thing, not ear-catching thing, well, it is ear-catching, but like the thing that was like, okay, real
memorable, kind of
memorable, like real instrument, is the sound of his fingers on the string. Like it's like it sounds like a zipper. And there's like subtle things like that. I'm wondering if I can say we worked with a particular guitarist.
You can say the names.
I can say the name. Oh, David Quanberry.
Oh yeah, he's quite the artist.
We gave artists basically like a rough outline, but absolute freedom. And I think that was very important because
that's so interesting.
David Quanberry, he just did some things you wouldn't believe with a guitar, and like no processing necessary, like barely any processing to make it fit in the track, and it's cool. So there's like that element, like you can't recreate the sound of the amp, the sound of the room, the sound of the guitar, the sound of the fingers. It's all these things working
these layers
together.
You wouldn't know, you wouldn't even think of when you're working with.
You wouldn't
so
even know.
So,
that's one thing that's really.
It sounds
striking.
like you developed a respect for musicians.
Well, I've always had a respect, cause I
maybe that's not the word, but like an appreciation for what a musician can do versus like a program.
Well, what a musician can do to a record, a talented one.
Yeah, really talented, creative.
We got a lot of talented people on here.
Yeah.
And it's just absolute freedom. Like for example, we wanted a violin quartet, which is like 4 violin players. So we got Melissa Bandura from Familiar Wild, who also plays with Isque. She recorded 4 parts of the violin, and then we just stacked them and panned them, and I'm putting them in a space with volume, and then panning, and then some EQ on different ones, because bouncing off them. Just my theory, it's not scientific or whatever, but it sounds like I just picture like 3 guys with mustaches on the Titanic. No, 4 guys with mustaches on the Titanic playing these violins. It sounds amazing.
It's one girl instead.
But it's one girl, one talented girl.
So that's really interesting. And how did you make selections? Like how did the process go of picking songs, A, and B? I want to know about recording vocals and your process for recording vocals.
Okay, that's a two-part question.
Yeah.
Choosing the songs.
How did you go about picking the songs? Or did you even do that? Did the artist pick the songs, or how did that work out? Tell the story.
I would come up with ideas, little loops, little progressions, kind of like just rough ideas,
So you came up with production ideas.
and then I would grab the artist and be like, I have this idea, and we would just loop it over
And
and
the artist
over,
would come up with...
and I'd hit that magic
Yeah.
red button,
Yeah.
and the artist would just not freestyle, but like apply lyrics.
Was that all the songs or some of the songs?
Some of the songs. Some of the songs.
That's neat. And
yeah.
then so when you recorded those, how did you take that idea and that improvisation to a finished product?
How would I take that?
How did you guys do that together?
Well, you basically go from that rough idea, that loop, and then you kind of explode it out into the full thing, and then there's a song in there, and then so together we arranged, then we come up with new ideas, and then
So you
we
build on it. It's like a germ.
you build on a thing this big,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I learned in techno music. In techno music, you don't make the track linearly. You make like the main meat of the track, and then you just explode it outwards, right? And yeah, so it's like, yeah.
No,
and
sorry, that didn't make sense. Sorry. In techno music,
in techno music, you don't start at this end or this end.
Yeah.
Kick, boom, 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 and then add a clap, boom, psh, boom.
You do that, don't you? Do that in techno?
That's how the song sounds.
Oh, but it's not how you actually
how
make
it's
it.
produced is it started with an idea. It could be a like or whatever, and then you add percussion, bass, kick, toss stuff out. You put stuff
You
back
make it
in.
super thick,
Yeah,
and then you
make
space it out and arrange it.
Yeah, because if you're doing it linearly, you have the kick and the clap, and you'll mix that, and then you get the next thing. And you're like, oh no, I have to take part of that out of the clap. That clap doesn't work anymore. It's like super not. Like you absolutely could make it that way, but it's kind of.
That's not how you make it.
That's not how I make it.
That's not how you make it. So this was a different process of creation and production, obviously.
Similar but different. Well, some of the songs we did linearly. Some of the songs there were live recordings. I recorded some live recordings, and the songs had been developed and fleshed out over the course of a tour. So
there was different processes.
There was
of
different
creation.
processes. Yeah, some of the songs were.
I imagine the
finished.
artist had some that were and then you
right.
Then you kind of made
with the verse, chorus,
studio
and bridge and all that,
arrangements,
and then like, and with those we did basically live off the floor vocals, guitar, not even to a click, just get it out of your body and get it into the thing, and then you. And
then you made it.
And then because the arrangement's there, the arrangement's in the head, you gotta get it out.
And what about figuring out keys and stuff? Did you have to do adjustments of rhythm and keys at any like the keys of the songs?
The keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried it. Yeah, we did that.
You had to change the key sometimes to suit the artist's voice and that kind of thing, and the rhythm.
And I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard.
What would you say was the most difficult aspect of this project? I know it's not finished, but looking back on what you've accomplished so far, what would you say was really a stretch for you at the time you were doing it?
Oh, like the most challenging thing?
Yeah.
Basically relearning production.
Huh.
Because it's so different. Like from like a pop record to an electronic one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover, but to get a sound, especially with the genre that we're going for,
which from what I understand is sort of it's a bit of a hybrid genre.
It's a big hybrid.
Yeah.
It's electro-folk, equal parts electro-folk. It's not we have real drums. We have acoustic drums on some of the tracks, electronic drums on others. We've actually had acoustic drums replace electronic drums, and they sound much better. We've had strings, electronic strings, with acoustic strings played by a real person.
Neat.
We have a totally synthetic, not real guitar. solo, and then we have one that is like freaking Pink Floyd
Oh god.
from the 70s guitar
Wow.
solo. And yeah.
What other instruments did you put on there?
What other instruments? We got banjo.
Nice.
We got harmonica. We got acoustic guitar.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 57 Gibson,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have a 12 string, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We have
Bunch of electric guitars. It sounds like
a
as
bunch of
well.
electric guitars. Yeah.
Oh.
We got a lot of
Horns and things.
a lot of horns, a lot of voice live, a lot of synthy stuff, a lot of vintage drum.
On that western
stuff?
track, you've got a lot. I heard about the western one. There's a lot of different symphonic instruments on that one.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
We got mandolins, we got trumpet, we got
Whistling.
we got whistling, we got bells.
And then on what were the synth modules that you primarily used for this? Well, or did you just kind of get stuff from everywhere?
Synth modules like
or synth. I don't know if that's the right word.
like instruments, like
yeah, which instruments?
Well, virus.
Virus.
Yeah, I got 3 of them, so you know they're on there.
Huh.
You know, just some massive as a utility. You got Extra Records Serum, which is used quite a bit.
What's Serum?
Serum is a wavetable synthesizer developed by Steve Duda, and it is probably one of the better synths to come out. It's basically like a massive competitor. Like you can write in your own wavetables, your own shapes. The oscillators are high quality, oversampled, high quality effects, a bunch of unison detuning options. It's just a very robust synth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't Steve Duda a friend of yours? I feel like you guys
yeah.
you know
No.
each other.
I've been following for a while, like the Blue Screen of Death. Those days he's worked with Dead Mouse and stuff like that.
Neat.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think what else we want to get you talking about. Do you see yourself doing more of this kind of production and expanding your production? Is it something that you enjoy doing? And would you consider working with other artists? Obviously you don't have a whole lot of time because you're busy, but is it something that you've thought about, like, oh, I can produce someone else, or
yeah, I can do that.
like this is your first production of somebody else, right? So
it's like I think when you like employ a producer, you're looking for a certain skill set and a certain sound. What's his name? Max Martin.
Yeah.
He has a sound.
He sure does.
He has a platinum sound for pop music.
Yeah.
People go to him because he's like, this guy knows how to make a pop record. Like if you want, a type of sound that I make, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It's cozy fire.
It's making a nice whistle.
Yeah.
Well, it's early days, but it's neat to know, and I'm sure that all of us fans, and I count myself among your fans, are excited to hear the new project, and just keep learning from the great Sadowik.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to share about this record? Or anything else for that matter?
The reason why the reason why this project is so compelling, and I've kind of learned this about myself, is I really appreciate and strive for that thrill of high achievement. And that might be why I spring out of bed at 3 a.m, because there's something in my head, and there's something that I'm obsessing over. Like I'm obsessed making this. And it's a very ambitious situation.
Yeah, 15 songs you said, or 14.
14, yeah. and each one is its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Each one has like a deeper level of abstraction. I think it's very important in music. Music is supposed to make you think or feel something,
Mm-hmm.
or like paint an image in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Should I go on?
You could. That's a
I
pretty
could.
cool note.
A cool note to end on.
Yeah. Well, I think you're leaving a lot of anticipation for the record. So,
Yes.
when will we hear a sample of it? Do you know? Is there any plans for release or any kind of? When are you gonna roll it out?
I'm gonna roll that out. The date is tentative. Late 2017, early 2018, or something like that.
Well, I'm sure you'll keep
A sample.
posted.
Yeah, I don't know.
A sample. Yeah. Maybe.
It's not up to me to.
No, you don't know. It's the artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Sadwick. I really appreciate doing this interview. I always enjoy interviewing you. So it's I just hope that you keep doing what you do and keep sharing. And we'll keep watching you.
A lot of things are going to come about.